Now, if you don't understand what I'm doing, just try this and see. Fold one edge down, take the other edge and flip it over, and look for the finished edge right at the corner. Before I stitch anything else, I'm going to insert my panel in the middle. I didn't use pad stitching, so this quilt square is so small it doesn't require pad stitching. I took this square out of the machine just to show you down at the bottom this area doesn't look so good. I'd like it to look better. Normally I stitch to here, hold this area with my needle, and do what I'm going to show you here. I use a little paint point dropper to kind of rearrange this fabric to make it a better edge. I reach the little ball in and pull out as much fabric as I need, and then I stitch down and stitch back again. So that's a little tip to help you get this beveled corner looking as neat as possible. Stop right here, plant your needle, observe if you need to rearrange this, do a little bit of rearranging, stitch down, stitch back, and continue on. So I've got these 3 squares done. I'm going to move to the sewing machine and show you how I actually stitch them down. And none of them are perfect, but as you see on the back, it's not obvious they're not perfect. I'm getting ready to install the last frame. My stitch length is 4 millimeters. I use a button reed to move the presser foot. When it's dangling in air, you'll see that. And I also have my little paint point applicator to help me tidy up corners. So let's get going. I do like to use a walking foot. If you have a plant and pivot feature, what that does is whenever the sewing machine stops, the needle is in the fabric and the presser foot's up. That's how I like to sew most things. I'm approaching this corner, so I'm turning it under. I might give it a little bit of a press with my finger. I'm going to turn under the other side. So you see this side is finished. I might give it a little bit of help. I'm going to turn this up and I'm going to hold it in position until I reach the point where those 2 frame edges meet one another. And then as soon as my needle lands on the this layer, I pick up my presser foot, I pivot to this side, and I tidy up my beveled edge. So I pull out this side because I'd like it to cover up a little more, and I push in this side. Then I stitch down and I stitch up. This is a skill that takes a little bit of practice, but you can do it. And I'm using high contrast thread. I guarantee you, if you do this in matching thread, it will look great. When I come to this edge, I'm turning up my edge in relationship to this point right here. So that's how I determine where that turn up point is where it meets that. And then I turn up that, like that, okay? Okay. Now I just have to, this one doesn't require any tidying up. That's kind of nice. Except maybe here. Sometimes I miss the last stitch. So I honestly take a stitch back across where I should be. Just a single stitch kind of on an angle. And pretend like it never happened. This corner doesn't have any material next to it, and so that's when I'm going to use the buttonhole reed. Or actually the button reed. It's not a buttonhole reed, it's a button reed. So I have to find my center point so I know where to turn this. Outside corners are always a little difficult for me. I like having the ones surrounded by other rectangles or squares personally, but I get used to it. So I'm just going to tuck this in, pull this out, kind of make it all work. There we go. This would be better with a stiletto, that last little bit of stitching, but I don't have a stiletto with me, so I'm just going to have to make do. Here's where I use my button reed. I slide it under the presser foot, and it helps the foot move off of the thin air that it was resting on in the back. Here's something weird that I do. I reach inside the beginning thread because I don't like loose ends, and I pull both the bobbin and the top thread into the space between the frame, and then I cut it, and this way I don't have any loose threads from that portion of my stitching. That's just a little bit of unusual things that I do when I'm sewing these quilts. This was a very difficult frame to sew. The fabric was thick. I had a camera in front of me, so my aim is not that good, but overall I hope you've gotten the idea about closing up the frame. Now I just come down and stitch on top of my previous stitches. Then I leave long thread tails and pull the thread to the back and tuck it in the back of my quilt. So this is the finished quilt block after we've done everything. And you can add more when you're ready.